Hey, Steve.
As we welcome in the voice of the Orange, Matt Parker. How do you feel about Pavarotti, Matt?
You guys are doing all you can to keep from winning those awards.
Come on, the Four Tenors were huge when the Georgetown-Syracuse rivalry was at its hottest. The Four Tenors were at their hottest.
Whatever you say.
Iverson, Coleman. Who were the Four Tenors? Iverson, Coleman, Mourning, Owens.
Pearl? No, he's too early. So. Yeah, all right.
I didn't know you were going to start basketball, but I guess since Paulie went there.
Because I just want to talk to somebody about basketball that is there and actually watches the games and knows what's happening.
We could do that. But I guess let's start with Georgetown. Paulie hates this series, Matt.
I don't hate it.
No, you do. You do. You take a shot at it every chance you get. Does this game still matter? A little extra?
Yes. Not everything has to pertain only to the 18 to 20-year-olds. There's a whole range of constituencies that everybody's trying to satisfy here. A lot of mouths to feed, and certainly with the coaches and their age range and up, I think it does matter. I think a lot of it comes back to what's the alternative, right? So people like Paulie pop off and say, well, instead of playing Georgetown every year, let's have a rotating series around the Big East. Well, that might be great. The thing is, one thing is the Georgetown series has gone back all that time, and there's mutual interest in continuing it, largely because of, for Georgetown's perspective, it's the exposure of playing Syracuse. From Syracuse's perspective, it's that and the opportunity to be in D.C., where you regularly recruit and there's a huge alumni base. That doesn't necessarily apply with all of the other Big East teams. In other words, a one-off here or there with Providence doesn't have that same routine or relationship. Of course, we all romanticize games at the Garden, and you want to play UConn, St. John's, Villanova, something like that. It would be awesome. Now you're requiring 3, 4, 5 contracts and a lot of people to sit at the table and work all that out, as opposed to continuing the Georgetown series when your schedule's already pretty rigid. There's only so much wiggle room in the 31 games that you can make in the regular season because 25, 26 of them are basically committed from the jump. So that's among the reasons that the series continues. But I think it's good. Does it have people throwing chairs and elbows in the game and pro players all over? Not right now, it doesn't, but it may again. And I think it's worth continuing.
Matt, you see the stuff on Twitter. People react to your tweets on Twitter where you simply put out a box score of what Coach Autry said post-game. What do you make of the people that are down on Red 9 games into his second year?
I'm not really sure. I'm still trying to figure it out. I think a lot of it has to do with just fan behavior and social media. It's easy, particularly if you don't put your real name to something. It's easy to pop off with no real consequences, not recognizing that you're talking about real people and real situations. I will say this. If you think firing Adrian Autry 10 games into his second season is even remotely on the table, you're just not plugged into reality. Period. It's not going to happen. Okay? He is safe well through this year and probably well through next. I'm not going to say completely regardless of the outcome, but just because if it turns out to be a so-so team or whatever this year, they've got a great recruiting class coming in, he will be given an opportunity, certainly through next year before that really even becomes a consideration. And I hate to even broach it in that way because conversation about his job right now is just not warranted and it's just not realistic. People don't get fired in their second season as the head coach at Syracuse University, period. And, right now you're paying 2 football coaches and do the math on all the things that are happening in the real world. Adrian Autry's job is safe. So if that's your reaction, like, oh my God, they pop, or, the other went well in this game. Oh, but the steals were 9-1. Yep, they were, and Albany had much more purple in their uniforms than Syracuse did. I just some of that stuff becomes a little tiresome. I understand that the results are not where people want, but they are coming off their first sort of no doubt about it easy win of the year, and I think we all can breathe a little bit.
Yeah, let's talk about that. No doubt about it. Easy win of the year, and 102-85 over Albany. I know it's quote unquote just Albany, but do you think they found some things to build upon? From that, a few of these performances of late, are they starting to move in the right direction from what you see?
Yeah, I don't know that I necessarily think about it's build upon. I just think the whole thing is a process. So, right, wrong, or indifferent, the whole thing is a build, right? So you're different in game 20 than you were in 10, and you're going to be different in game 30 than you were in game 20. And this thing's a process. It has been a little bit of a sputter out of the gates, of course, and they don't have a marquee win yet. But I think you did see some stretches there in the Albany game of kind of putting together whether it's the ball movement or it's the hustle on defense or to a loose ball or getting consecutive stops and those types of things. Yeah, you see some flashes of what they're capable of and what you're looking to see against better competition. So it's there. I think every individual player has their own story of their maturation and their development over the course of the season. Jaquan Carlos was an easy target to point out in the first couple of games. He dominated in the exhibitions, didn't do it against the real competition here to start. Well, now he kind of is. He's not going to fill up the bucket, but he is a facilitator and makes things happen there. Some of the other guys are getting back to showing what it is that earned them the spot on the roster. So it's still kind of marinating, and I know people don't want to hear, be patient and let it play out and that type of thing, but we are seeing it play out, and each game is a new exposure of that.
Do you think we see a rotation that tightens up moving forward? And, we see Kyle Cuffin, he has a great first half and then, made some mistakes in the second half. Or Lucas Taylor has been kind of hit or miss, and we've seen his minutes kind of dwindle. Do you think once they get into, January with the ACC schedule resuming and beyond, do you think Red does, tighten up the rotation and, we start seeing 7 guys on a regular basis?
I don't know about 7. I do think my personal point of view is it's not prudent to play 10, 11 players. I don't know that Red agrees with that. I think Red wants to have everybody feel like they're part of the team. He wants to play an up-tempo. They haven't shown it all the time, but wants to play a tempo and a pressure that indicates to the guys, look, I need you for almost like hockey. I need you to go all out for however long you can, and when you need a sub, we're going to find a sub. And so if that's what you're telling your team, you need to prepare that second and third string player at every position and have some answers to bring people in. I don't know that I put people in, if it were me and I couldn't coach 6th grade CYO, I don't see a lot of value in putting a guy in for 90 seconds, to me. So, except for obviously there are certain situations, foul to give and free throw shooting at the end of games potentially. There are different situations there. So I think, and shoot, Paulie will tell you we don't need to name him right now, but there's a player that when he went in the game the other day, I kind of rolled my eyes like, what's going on here? And he came in and played pretty well, And so there's time. These guys are on scholarship. They're all capable of doing something in games. I think here it's like a dirty word. Oh, they're going to cut down the rotation or cut it down to 7, and then we're going to be offended for the guys who didn't play. I just think the better teams are tighter teams. They have one sub at really each of the 3 position groups. So you're looking at 8 players, 8.5, something like that. To me is kind of ideal. And I think it's only human nature that in the bigger games, there's not all of your roster is suited to go into those. So that's why you do see as the season goes on, it gets trimmed down a little, but I think it still remains to be seen with Red this year.
Well, right.
And particularly, Westry's a guy right now that to me is a wild card because he obviously has in other words, Westry has in theory, the way it's been sold to us, right, a higher ceiling than say Majstorovic or even Cuff or whatever, but he hasn't been there. He hasn't played in 2 years. He obviously needs nursing in. The reason he's a wild card for me is he plays a position or can fill in at a position where you have a star player injured. So I think the more that you develop answers there, Cuff, Westry, however that goes, obviously Chapa Moore getting playing time at the guard spot right now, you want to find out what your answers are there, and then, hope and pray that J.J. Starling has as fast a recovery as possible and comes back to the front of the lineup.
One last basketball question for you here, Matt. Someone in the chat would like to know. I'm assuming it's without J.J. on the line in the lineup. Who do you think is the best player on this team?
Donnie Freeman.
Right. All right.
I would say J.J. Starling, and then J.J. Starling is probably the best player for Syracuse right now. Donnie Freeman is probably going to have the best pro career and is certainly exceptionally capable and all of that. And you hope you get to a point where you don't have to choose one or the other. They're playing at the same time, but Freeman's the best. Freeman has the best tools.
I think we all agree on that.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit of football here before we let you go. Kyle McCord announcing that he is definitely playing. And, Fran Brown said on Monday, he said, I expect him to play. I think we weren't sure if that was just, coach speak or if that was actually the case. And then Kyle McCord yesterday comes out and says that he's playing. I know he's just one guy. How important is it, Matt, for the quarterback of this team to say he's playing? I would imagine that leads to other guys saying, yeah, we're playing as well. How important is it for him to be out there?
I don't think I would say this every year, but I think in this case it's vital because it's very apparent that he's the leader. Fran Brown will say he's second to Fran as he's number 2 in charge in the whole program, second most important person in the whole program, and I think that's borne out. These guys follow him, so I have every expectation that because Kyle is playing, that other guys will play. I don't think that's true of just any quarterback. I think Kyle has that sort of gravitas within the team and leadership. Everybody knows the impact that he's made on the field and how much better a team they are with him. I think partly putting your quarterback in that position sort of necessitates everybody else playing and warrants it. I mean, it kind of has to go hand in hand. You don't want to, let's just say for the sake of argument, multiple linemen opt out, then I don't know that you want Kyle in there, right? So they all kind of are interwoven. Can't say that Kyle necessarily impacts the defense, but it does in a way that who's Justin Barron or Marlo Wax to stay out if Kyle McCord is in.
Yeah.
You could argue that their positions are more injury prone or what have you, but no, I think it's a positive sign, and until proven otherwise, I would take it to mean that there's going to be pretty good attendance from the regulars.
Yeah, and based on what you've seen, and I know that the matchup is still a couple of weeks away, but based on what we know about Washington State, with Kyle McCord playing, and we would assume a lot of the other, big, important names playing as well, do you feel that Syracuse is the better team in this matchup?
Well, sure. I think with Kyle McCord playing, Syracuse is definitely the best team that Washington State has seen all year, right?
Sure, right.
So, and Washington State hasn't won a game since the first week of November. So, but again, the bowl games have become exhibitions. There is a great deal historic, in this last few years, there's a great deal of attrition to the roster. They may or may not have it. It looks like Syracuse is maybe going to hold it off. And to me, that's one of the biggest determining factors. Who is most like their real team?
Right.
Last year's bowl game was a disaster for South Florida. They're an ascendant program. They held their team together. That was a big deal, and they demonstrated it from the jump. For Syracuse, it wasn't a big deal. There was attrition in the roster and the depth chart, and we saw the results.
Right. Yeah. All right. Well, we're looking forward to it. Matt, as always, appreciate the time. Thanks so much, and we look forward to chatting with you again next week.
Okay, we'll be there. Thanks, guys.
All right. Voice of the Orange, Matt Park, joining us here on the show. And with that, we'll hit our final time.